Hello and good evening, everybody. Tonight I want to bring you all episode 37 of Album Rant. But before I get started on that, I really got to give a huge shout out to all of my viewers and subscribers. Last week's episode on Shout Out the Devil became the highest rated episode of Album Rant ever. And it broke a ton of records all within the first couple of days. And well, it really means a lot, and I just want to say I could not have done it without you guys, and y'all are awesome, and please keep viewing. I so appreciate the support. So, moving on from episode 36, we're going to start on episode 37, and I have decided to, for the very first time, talk about the band Motorhead, English hard rock band that originated in the mid-70s, and believe it or not, these guys have been incredibly influential in the field of heavy metal, but they never really considered themselves to be a heavy metal artist, which is interesting, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But we're going to start with a band called Hawkwind. I think I said that correctly. And they were really more of a space rock band, or kind of a They dived into various genres, but Wikipedia describes them as space rock, and when I hear that, I think more of Pink Floyd, which is very interesting. But it does mention they went through various genres like prog rock and punk rock, and within that band, there was a member on the bass guitar for a period of time named Lemmy Kilmister, and he contributed quite significantly to the band, but he was eventually let go due to drug usage. And his drug of choice was amphetamines, and he was fired, and he assembled some more guys, and he formed the band Motorhead. Well, when he was in Hawkwind, there was a song called Motorhead. I believe he wrote it, and I believe he also sang it, so there's that at least. But he decided to name his new band after the song Motorhead. Are you confused yet? Hope not, but if you are, I'll make another video where I go into more detail and try to clarify a few things. But Lemmy found a few more members by the name of Larry Wallace and Lucas Fox. Larry Wallace, of course, being on guitar, and Lucas Fox being on the drums. And throughout the initial days of Motorhead, they went through various lineup changes until they finally settled on a somewhat consistent lineup. This is also known as the quote-unquote classic lineup, and it consisted of Lemmy on bass guitar and lead vocals, Fast Eddie Clarke on lead guitar, and Philthy Animal Taylor on the drums. And sadly, all three of these guys have now passed on, so it's a little bit sad, but they definitely went out rocking. But they released their debut album, appropriately titled Motorhead, in the year 1977. And on that album was a cover of the song Motorhead from Hawkwind. Again, it's super confusing. But I gotta say, that initial debut album, I do own it on vinyl only, but I think the sound was kind of flat. I'm not sure if I would really call it a metal album. Again, Lemmy certainly didn't. I think it was more punk rock. But there were a few good songs on there. Of course, there was the title track. There was a song called Iron Horse, and there was also a cover of Train Kept a Rollin'. Now, as far as Train Kept a Rollin' goes, all I'm going to say is this. Whenever I hear it, I definitely wish I was listening to the Aerosmith version. Having gotten that out of the way, it was not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely far lesser than what the band would later do. And I know for their second album, which was entitled Overkill, released in the year 1979, they did kind of a switch up. They got a new producer, and they certainly got a new sound. And I gotta say this, for Overkill, they really came out swinging. We had a much more polished sound to it. And by what I mean by that is it's got more of a punch to it. It's got more of a kick to it. And I think the sound is very much improved. I think the songwriting is very much improved. And Overkill was an absolute classic. And we got tracks such as the title track, which is amazing. We got No Class. We got Stay Clean. We got Damage Case. We have Metropolis. And we have Limb from Limb. All of which are Motorhead classics, and I highly suggest checking out Overkill. But again, those punk elements were still present. I mean, Lemmy has a very, very thick and raspy voice to him, and back when I was younger, my older brother was very much into punk music, so I knew how to recognize it, and first time I heard Motorhead, I was like, wow, these guys sound very punk rock. But regardless, they released their third album later in 1979 entitled Bomber, which included songs such as Dead Man Tell No Tales, or Stone Dead Forever, or the title track, which is probably the best song on there. And we also have a song called Step Down, which may not be Motorhead at their finest, but it's significant because Fast Eddie Clarke, their guitarist, actually takes over lead vocals on this one. I think he did sing on some of their earlier tracks that didn't make it onto the debut album, so this isn't the first time he actually took lead vocals, but it is the first time he sang on a full-fledged Motorhead album, and I gotta say, while I do love Bomber, I do consider it part of their classic era. I think it's the weakest effort from their classic era. It's still very, very phenomenal. It would definitely rank very highly up there for me, but out of the good stuff, it's the least. But anyways, after that, it is going to bring me to the subject of tonight's review, which is 1980's Ace of Spades by, again, Motorhead. And you see the three guys right there. No, I do not know who is who, so don't ask me. If you do know, please kindly educate me in the comments section. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But this is their fourth album, and there's the cover right there. So let's see what we have here on the back. And it all kicks off with side one, or side A, and it kicks off with the title track, Ace of Spades. And again, this album comes out swinging. There is no big buildup. There is no grand entrance or anything. They just get right to the point and they just start hammering it in. And it is a very, very fast song, and it's a very, very aggressive song, and I think it's absolutely incredible. Apparently the gambling is some kind of metaphor. You know, if you like to gamble, I'll tell you that you're mad. You win some, you lose some. It's all the same to me. I probably said that incorrectly, but it's okay. But it's only about 2.5 minutes or so, but it's a great song. But unfortunately, Lemmy said in some of his later days that he was just flat out sick and tired of playing that song. And I can understand that. I mean, it's a hit. The fans want to hear it, so they feel obligated to play it. But at the same time, you know, after you do it a couple 100,000 times or so, you kind of get sick of it, and I totally understand that. But Ace of Spades is a Motorhead classic song, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Then we come to Love Me Like a Reptile, which is just oozing with sleaze. This one is a little bit slower, but it's got a nice flowy rhythm to it. A nice fluid rhythm, I guess I should say. And it's still incredibly hard rocking, and I love Me Like a Reptile. Yes, a lot of these songs are about sex, and they are going to get even less subtle later. Don't you worry about that. I will get to it. But I think Love Me Like a Reptile is actually a better song than the title track. I love the title track, but Love Me Like a Reptile has just got a much better rhythm to it, and I absolutely love it. Then we come to Shoot You in the Back. That's the rhythm to it. It's awesome, okay? It's got a kind of a Western feel to it, and I'm guessing the cover art is based off of that song rather than the title track. Maybe, possibly, I don't know, but that would be my best guess. But Shoot You in the Back is another hard hitter. Shoot You in the Back is another classic Motorhead song, and again, I think this one may actually be better than the title track. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me. Ace of Spades is a lot more mainstream than these next two, but I still really, really love it. But that nice staccato feel that it has to it, I absolutely dig it. And when I first heard this album, that was one of my favorite tracks. It grabbed me very, very quickly. Some of these other songs and songs on other albums took a long time to hook me. Shoot You in the Back had me right out of the gate. Then we have Live to Win, which is probably the weakest song on here. It's still pretty fast, but it's kind of lacking the punch that I wanted from it. It's okay. I mean, it's still a great Motorhead song, but I am going to say it's probably my least favorite from side A, but I still love it. Okay, if you thought Love Me Like a Reptile left little to the imagination, well, we now come to track 5, Fast and Loose. Another very sleazy sex song, and I mean, the title says everything, okay? It's about someone who's fast and loose, so there you go. It's also pretty fast, and it's got a pretty good kick to it, but it's definitely lacking in comparison to Love Me Like a Reptile. Love Me Like a Reptile, like I said, grabbed me from the very second it started. Fast and Loose, it does grab me, but maybe not in the same way, but I still kind of like it. But then we come to the album closer, We Are the Road Crew. And I gotta give Lemmy a lot of props on this one. It is dedicated to, well, their roadies, their road crew, who they have said is the best road crew that anyone, any band could ever ask for. And I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, of course, Lemmy and Fast Eddie Clarke and Philthy Animal Taylor, they are the stars of this group. They are the stars of this act. They are the ones that get all of the attention. The road crew is very often overlooked, but I really respect the fact that he gave them a shout out. And this is one of their best songs, and it's not quite as fast as the title track, but it's still pretty fast, but the chorus, I think, is where the song kind of loses a little bit of steam. All he does is go, "We are the road crew, da-da-da-da-da-da." And I think that's a little bit weak. It's definitely the weakest part of the song, but I still really, really dig it. But side A, wow. Favorite one from side A, I am going with Love Me Like a Reptile. Maybe Shoot You in the Back another day, but tonight it is going to be Love Me Like a Reptile, and that is one of my favorite Motorhead songs ever. And it's a shame it is not more widely recognized. Well, I can understand why, because this album has so many great songs, it's easy to overlook some, so unfortunately, Love Me Like a Reptile often gets lost in the cracks. So now we're going to go to side B, and it's going to kick off with Fire Fire, which is also a very, very fast rocker, and I do love it. Not quite as good as the title track, which kicked off side 1, but I still think it's a pretty aggressive song, and I do like it. There is a live version on one of their greatest hits albums, which I think might be a little bit better, but it's still really, really strong and very, very rockin'. Then we return to the sleazy Fuck Me, Suck Me songs. And we are going to talk about now Jailbait. Well, yeah, a little uncomfortable here. But Jailbait is, I gotta say, it's a little bit weaker than Fire Fire. And it's a little bit weaker than the majority of side one. Just again, it doesn't quite have that hook to it. Neither does Dance. And again, like I said, all these songs are incredibly good. This is Motorhead at their very best, but I would say this is the weakest of the best. Dance is only about 2.5 minutes or so, and it's the weakest song on here. But if I put it on any other album, it would probably be one of the absolute greatest. So again, very, very stiff competition. But then we come to a very interesting subject. These next two songs are often played together. They are often considered to be one and the same, which I think is interesting considering they sound very, very different. We have Bite the Bullet, and this one definitely comes out kicking. Bite the Bullet is another very, very aggressive number, and while I said Jailbait and Dance were a little bit more forgettable than some of the rest of the album, Bite the Bullet picks things back up. I love Bite the Bullet. Bite the Bullet has a great rhythm to it. It's got a great beat to it. It's fast, it's raw, it's aggressive. It's amazing. But there's not really a space. There's not really a couple seconds of silence between Bite the Bullet and the next track. It kind of just fades one into the next, and it's quite interesting. So as I said, these two songs don't have a lot in common. But I guess it's going to segue into The Chase is Better Than the Catch. This one is slower. This one is not quite as speedy as some of the other stuff on here, but it's just as epic, okay? It's a little bit darker, which is what I like about it. But The Chase is Better Than the Catch is a great song, and I do recommend it. But I gotta say, probably the strongest song from side B is going to be The Hammer. It's only about 2 minutes or so, but it's again a very, very fast song. It's again very, very raw and aggressive. Love the beat, love the rhythm, and I think The Hammer is going to end up being my favorite from side B. So, favorite from side one, I'm giving it to Love Me Like a Reptile. Favorite from side two is going to be The Hammer. But Bite the Bullet and The Chase is Better Than the Catch are very, very worthy contenders. Kind of a funny story. I know Lemmy was high all the time, but on the Greatest Hits album, there's a live version of Bite the Bullet and The Chase is Better Than the Catch on one track. And you know, in live concerts, the singer kind of talks to the audience for a little bit, and, you know, kind of introduces them to the song and everything. And he actually says, these next two songs are going to be Bite the Catch and The Chase is Better Than the Bullet. I don't know if that was intentional. It may not have been. It would not surprise me if it wasn't intentional. It would not surprise me if he actually did forget the titles of his own songs. But there you go. He actually did introduce them incorrectly, which is kind of hilarious in hindsight. But I've got a very, very interesting history with these guys. Of course, I got into them through Metallica. I bought their Garage Incorporated cover album, and the last 4 songs on it are all Motorhead covers. We have Overkill, we have Damage Case, we have Stone Dead Forever, and we have Too Late, Too Late. So I said to myself, these sound pretty good. Let's go ahead and get a Motorhead album. Well, I got the Greatest Hits album, and for some reason, it didn't grab me the way I wanted it to. I liked it, but I kind of put it back on the CD rack, and I kind of forgot about it for a very, very long time. Then for Christmas one year, I think it was Christmas of '06, I want to say, I did get 2 Motorhead albums for Christmas, Overkill and Bomber. They were on CD, of course. And so just to complete the little trilogy, I bought Ace of Spades. I was like, yeah, I kind of like this. Pretty good. And then I put them on the CD shelf and kind of forgot about them. Well, then I made a point. I decided when I was in the car, this was within the past couple of years or so, I was going to rotate through every single CD I owned. That Motorhead Greatest Hits came back up, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I cannot believe I did not get into these guys, 20 years ago. That's when I got the initial Greatest Hits. I cannot believe I did not get into them back then. I should have. I deprived myself of some great music. So the thing is this, guys, never, ever let a good thing go to waste. Never turn away something special because you're never going to realize what you're missing out on. And that is going to conclude my review of Ace of Spades by Motorhead. Do I recommend this album? You bet I do. It's a beast. It's a classic. Believe it or not, like I said, Motorhead does not consider themselves, or they did not consider themselves, a heavy metal artist. I mean, they were very influential on bands like Megadeth and Metallica, but I actually heard somebody say, I can't remember, that they have more in common with Chuck Berry than heavy metal. I am going to disagree on that passionately. So anyways, thank you all very much for joining me tonight. Next time, we are going to take a look at the best of both worlds, but also the worst of both worlds. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.